if not, it's great to meet you. I'm Leila Golchehreh, the co-founder and co-CEO of Reliance AI. Thank you so much for joining this panel on the 5 questions that every privacy professional should ask when building their programs, but don't. I am an entrepreneur, a lawyer, and a data protection professional, very passionate about building new products, especially in the space where we are going through this AI renaissance that we're going to talk about a little bit today. And as the co-CEO and co-founder of Reliance AI, I've used some of my firsthand pain points and experiences to lead the creation of multiple new data privacy technology products where we can really harness the power of AI for good through visibility and an understanding of data flows. I'm very pleased to be here today because I am a huge supporter of women in technology and happy to help however I can, especially for those women that are working in data protection. So please add me on LinkedIn. I would be delighted to connect. You can also visit our company's website, reliance.ai, to learn more about how our privacy product and platform really works. There's a lot to cover today, and what I'd like to do is ensure that as we go through the discussion today that it is engaging. Oops, I'm getting to you a little bit early with the first question here. That it's engaging and empowering, really inspiring you, so it will be really actionable for you. So I'll share some of those privacy program strategies and what has worked for myself and colleagues and also not worked for us. So you will benefit from some of the learnings that I've had and my colleagues have had throughout their career, and really creating and unlocking support for your program. But also, if you took a sneak peek at the slide I shared a little too early, you'll see that it's also about budgeting for our privacy programs. And we'll address some of the 5 questions that I personally wish I asked, as do my colleagues, when we were building our own programs in-house. And that's exactly what we're going to focus on here today. I'd also really like to share some of my experiences about some of the kind of global learnings that I've had over the past 15 years as a privacy and data protection officer. And because I've worked in so many industries ranging from healthcare to financial services, HRM, autonomous vehicles, and otherwise, there are quite a lot of learnings that would have been helpful in advising each of my clients and building out programs really from the ground up. So why don't we go ahead and dive in? Really, to start with, the very first question you need is to ask is, do I have the necessary budget to finance my program? Man, do I wish I asked this question during the interview process for every role that I have taken. Ask this question before taking any role and plan for how much budget you might need for your 1, 3, and 5-year plans. I know that this is a panel about privacy, so you might have thought about generally asking questions around, transparency or consent or data minimization, and we can certainly talk about that too. But for those that are leaders in their program or joining an organization for the very first time, you really want to get this visibility. It's so incredibly important because whether you are the head of privacy, a privacy manager, a security professional, a security engineer, you really want to understand the budget. Understanding the budget, you will understand the executive support that you're going to have for your privacy program. And my frank advice to companies or to privacy professionals and security professionals as they consider whether to even take a role at a new company is there budget? And if it's not there, strongly evaluate if you should be joining that company. Because what's going to happen is you will find yourself in a situation where you might be amongst a very small group of resources who needs to build out a program, and you're not able to get the right tooling like Reliance AI or otherwise. There are so many different types of products and tooling. But what really is important is that you not only have the resources, and we'll talk about that later as one of our other questions, but that you really have that ability to get support across the board for your program, because no one can build a program in a vacuum. You need resources, and I cannot overstate enough that you need real technology. If the executive team supports you and supports a privacy program, they will allocate a budget to helping you build that program. And like I said, ask this question before taking a job and during even your annual reviews. There are cycles here. A couple other points to make here. So make sure you put in for your budget at the right times. That means you're going to need to get to know your finance team. We'll talk about this a bit more later, but privacy is probably one of the most cross-functional areas of any organization. So it's incredibly important that you have that relationship with those who hold the purse, because they're going to help you to unlock support for your program on multiple dimensions. Going forward, the next question 2 to ask is really, do I have the budget that's needed for your program? Are all the pillars of my program tied to an always live foundational data inventory and data map? This is absolutely critical in understanding what data you have, who is accessing that data, and what is being done to that data. We are currently undergoing an AI renaissance, and we cannot assume that we can continue to use manual forms and surveys to build a program. We need real technology. I just recently read a study around AR, VR, and data privacy. With only 100 seconds of motion data using AR, VR headset and gloves, we can determine, and I have if you were at my other panel, I didn't remember the exact number percentage, but I looked it up in between. 94.33% accuracy with exactly who a unique individual is in a set of 50,000 people. That is incredible power for an organization with significant privacy considerations here. So understanding the data you have, and not only the data directly there, but how in combination with other data elements that might help to navigate who and where and which resources might be able to re-identify individuals. The data map and inventory is absolutely critical to building out a program. It's the focus of my company, Reliance AI, because doing this manually and without a budget can be a very, very difficult exercise for any organization. We absolutely need technology when we're collecting data at the speed at which we're collecting. And if you reference the statistic that I've given with respect to these AR, VR headsets, you will appreciate the significant privacy impacts that new technology, emerging technology, and AI are presenting on data protection professionals. So it's absolutely essential that we have that ability to map data and keep pace with the rest of the organization using AI for good and for our own privacy programs. So let's get into question 3, which is, are my workflows truly embedded into the business to not disrupt the teams? Also, one lesson I wish I learned and understood earlier. As a privacy and data protection professional, it is very hard to push against the innovation machine. If we want our privacy and security programs to be effective, we must embed within the existing business and engineering processes of that organization. For years, and really because we've been so late to building privacy laws, lawyers and privacy professionals have tried to really push programs, new laws, new regulations downstream onto an organization. There are a series of issues with this. And because we have had to push down these new requirements onto the technology stack, what that's led to is a lot of friction across teams. Just last year alone, we had 59 new privacy bills that were proposed across the United States. When laws are developing this quickly, we are going to really frustrate some of our engineering, marketing, sales, and other counterpart stakeholders with respect to these privacy laws. By every time there's a new one, we're trying to make them adapt. It's just not a sustainable way of building things. And so a lot of what you need to think about is, how do I embed into these business processes in general? How do I embed within that technology stack? And this is why I was so inspired to build Reliance AI, because we've always needed that privacy co-pilot. Through the use of large language models and generative AI, we can embed at that layer And we don't disrupt engineering teams. That is absolutely critical, whether you are using our technology or generally building a program, that you understand what is the process that each one of the teams where I'm supporting their privacy and security program, how exactly is it that they make decisions, whether it's onboarding new vendors, whether it's writing new code, whether it's building new AI models. It's critical that we understand that process and we can embed within it. Another piece of advice that relates directly to this question on how do I embed into business flows and not disrupt the teams is that, particularly if you're working at technology organizations, you really want to know how exactly are they doing their sprint planning? What products, what services are about to be launched and released? Attend those sprint planning meetings. And I'm going to talk a little bit about privacy champions in a minute, but just understanding that, okay, this is the way the engineering process works. How can I embed myself in so I'm seen more as a partner and not just sitting in an ivory tower and then pushing down requirements onto the rest of the organization? Really critical, you build that partnership. And in doing so, you're going to be building the respect of that engineering or other function at the organization. So this is another key question that I really wish that I had considered as I was taking on new roles. And that could have been a lot smoother had I started joining and just understanding processes first and embedded myself within them really prior to kind of giving these new requirements. Now, obviously, this takes time. It takes really building those relationships. So that leads me into the question number 4 that you really must ask when building a privacy program, which is, do I really have the right champions within each business initiative and unit? And have I really cultivated those relationships effectively to have the support that I need? So often, privacy professionals can feel like they are sort of alone, kind of building out privacy programs. But when you build the right relationships and build the right partnerships to create champions out of other stakeholders across the business, what it enables you to do, and I will actually take 2 steps back, it is one of the most cross-functional areas, just like security, that we understand and build and appreciate how privacy relates to every unit across the organization. When we talk about privacy, we're talking about personal data. There's not a single department within any organization that doesn't have some kind of privacy implication. And so it's very important that you figure out who is the person within each one of these departments with whom I can build that relationship, so that as things generally start to build, or if there's a new initiative, you want them to feel like not only will they come and tell you because you're open to talking with them, but also that if you need to get something done, you have a champion from the inside. This is absolutely essential to getting your support. So ask yourself, have I found the right members of each critical business unit within the company who can support my privacy initiatives? Ideally, this is a department head, but at a minimum, you must have someone within the team who will help with pushing privacy initiatives for you at the organization, so that if there's another meeting and maybe you can't make it, they can raise, hey, there's this new privacy law here in California, and now data subjects, just like in Europe, have the right to request data. Are we ready for this? And what's the impact here? So these are the types of questions you should be thinking about as you establish whether or not you have a champion. You want engagement and support of that champion, and then for those true champions of data privacy, and largely because this is one of the most fundamentally important issues of our time. They will be happy and honored that you ask them to participate in something so important. A couple of things that I have heard other kind of team members, and colleagues of mine doing. One is establish a privacy council within your organization. You can meet once a month if you have enough resources and time, but if not, at least once a quarter, to bring to a discussion some of the most pressing challenges in privacy and data protection that are facing your organization. Assess those risks with that group of folks, get their perspectives from their various departments. And I mean, maybe you cannot invite, if you have smaller departments, everyone across the company, but at least one voice that would represent that particular business or other organizational unit, so that you can sit down, discuss, bring some of these challenges and questions and considerations to light, and also discuss what implementation of a program is going to look like, and measure those steps of implementation as you go along with this privacy council. Are we meeting our goals here? What are we missing? How can we improve? How can we be better? Which type of additional championship might we need? Is there one department that is just crushing it with data privacy, but another that might not actually be meeting some of the goals and targets? If so, why is that? And how can we be helpful? These are some of the questions that you really want to be considering as you're building out your privacy council and then your program generally. I also just recently connected with a colleague at a major e-signature company. And he has a very interesting program that he set up where he actually, in order to build championship for his privacy program, will basically second someone that's sitting within a different department to sit in on the privacy team meetings themselves for several months at a time and just join the privacy team, be an extended member of the privacy team. Now, this is a much larger organization with a lot of resources, so it depends on kind of where you are with respect to your resources. But if you have that capacity to do that, I think this is a brilliant program, because a lot of the privacy challenges that we face as professionals are largely in these gray areas, and it is very difficult to know how we're going to solve something when the law or the regulation is a completely moving target. When we lack clarity and we live in the gray, it really opens us up for the need and opportunity to have these discussions really openly, to discuss with other members of the team, to try to build an understanding of what is the real business implication of this particular decision. These are the types of things that you can discuss with a privacy champion or your privacy council, so that you're really understanding these practical implications. And when you look at some of these laws, some of them, have just been drafted in a way that can sometimes make it very hard for the business to either understand what's going on or to implement some of the suggestions there. And what you'll see, and actually there's a wonderful article that has been published by the former chief privacy officer at Adobe called Privacy is from Mars, Engineering is from Venus. I highly recommend that you take a read of that article. And basically they say, engineers are thinking in binary, privacy professionals often have to think in shades of gray and make judgment calls and decisions based on kind of this opaque requirement, and need to figure out how are they going to synthesize that and present it to an engineering team. The lack of that ability to communicate on the same planet, per that article, generally demonstrates that we needed a translation layer, which was one of the other real incentives for building Reliance AI. I really wanted to find a way to better communicate with my engineering champions, to understand their world through source code. And our technology really works by scanning that source code and providing an explanation that anyone who is not an engineer can really understand. So whether it's with Reliance AI or broadly as you're building your program, understand how you can translate privacy to these different functions. And, obviously this is the Security conference, so I know we have a lot of security professionals here as well. A lot of these same types of approaches can be certainly adopted as you think about your general security program. All right, so that's question 4. Now let's go to question 5. Do I have the right resources to support my program? With the technology, with the process, and legal as well as technical expertise? This is a very important question to assess as well. As far as people are concerned, the major question you need to ask yourself is, do I have the right outside counsel to support me? Both internationally, if you're subject to any of these international laws, and here in the US, where I am personally currently based, or any of the other global jurisdictions that have new privacy laws coming out, including China. There's much going on in data privacy across the EMEA region broadly. And in South America, we have a new data protection law called the LGPD out of Brazil. It is absolutely impossible to stay on top of all these developments on your own. You absolutely must get local expertise and experience of a trusted advisor who can counsel you on what are these changes that are being made and how can I actually keep up. Secondly, as far as getting the right engineering partner and counterpart who can really help with privacy implementation, that is also critical. Go meet your CISO, go meet your engineering team. If you are in technology, go meet the decision makers at your organization if you're not in technology, but who are building your core products or offering your core services, and figure out if they can help you with implementing your program. I would definitely like to suggest pizza. That always works for encouraging folks at your organization to come and visit you and talk about privacy, and make sure, again, as this relates to our champion, that they can assist you. I would also recommend, and there's a wonderful network being built around security. Find an engineer, if you are non-technical, with whom you can just have conversations. You can kind of stress test what you're hearing internally. Go and seek outside counsel, outside guidance, not only from your lawyers, but also technical experts who have an engineering background, and you can talk through these things with you. This is very critical as well. Now, from a process perspective, the question to ask is, do my processes make sense? A lot of times, privacy professionals can tend to sort of over-engineer things that actually need to be much more simple. You need to think about, what is the process for implementing this particular privacy control? What's the real impact on the business? And this is very hard. I am not saying it's easy. I have personally had to build out processes, and especially within the context of implementation, and it has just been quite a challenge. But what you need to assess, again, is if you've already understood the processes that each one of your departments is rolling out for their particular business unit, then you can help to build the right frameworks and, make sure that this is actually going to get implemented in the right way, and it is going to actually make sense. And I would also say that in the area of privacy, a lot of questions are coming through because there's so much uncertainty with so many different laws and developments across the board. If you've had to answer a question 3 times, build a process document with a Q&A and make sure that that's documented. So next time you get asked, just reference the document. That will help you to not only stop having to repeat yourself, but also with so much changing and so much falling on the backs of privacy and data protection professionals, it will help to keep you sane. You want to make scalable, repeatable processes and build frameworks to help ensure that everyone understands where you're headed and what the process actually needs to look like. So I'll give an example of when I was at Workday as a privacy counsel that I ended up doing at various other companies, building at various other companies as well. But at Workday, we built a field guide. So this was a guide for general privacy discussions and generally how things would need to be addressed with customers, with prospects, with particular marketing prospects or otherwise. And it was just a really simple, here's the type of issue. And when this issue arises, here's how you respond. If there are any questions about that particular issue, this is how to respond. And it was such an effective document because it just kept us all aligned and on the same page. So finally, and I know we just have 6 minutes left, I did have a bonus question, which if there's time, we'll get into it. But technology. At Reliance AI, we've built the technology that I always wished I had as a data protection professional, but I just never found. We focus here on machine learning and AI in order to understand code, and we treat privacy as a question of code, not data. That is a very unique approach to assessing the privacy opportunity. We use deep technical instrumentation to embed within the business to build a foundational, always live data inventory and map. And we embed an underlying business processes, operations, and workflows. And we support, and using AI, build data subject request fulfillment modules, data protection assessments, and allow for privacy contract management, among other things. to match the speed of your privacy program to the speed of your business and engineering operations. As I was in-house, I demoed every privacy tech tool on the market, and I just could not believe how much was missing there. I was very much focused on changing things for the better. So this technology would have truly been a career changer, because doing this on your own without the right technology can just be a really huge burden for any individual. So we have 5 minutes left. So I'm going to get into my bonus question here, which is, I don't think there's actually any panel within 2023 if we don't talk about generative AI in some way. So as you build your privacy program, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, I'd like to just really have you think about generally, what exactly are we going to need in the way of AI protections and AI governance this year? And I'd like to just suggest that as you think about your privacy program, there is so much within the privacy first principles as you build that program that directly tie to what's happening in AI. Make sure that you have an ethical use policy in place. And so with 4 minutes remaining, I'd like to just provide a quick overview of some of the general principles that you should consider as you're building these AI governance policies within your organization. You should have one. There is so much happening in the way of generative AI, and all kinds of personal data can just be dropped easily into ChatGPT, one of the image generators, or otherwise. You need to ensure, as you are building that privacy program, that you have that ability to help guide what data is going into some of these different models and modules. Very important that when you build this particular policy, you're thinking about compliance with legal and regulatory requirements, compliance with various terms of use that are required by the entity offering the AI tool. That means you should have a process for onboarding and understanding what are the terms of that tool. Very, very important. And we don't want the individual to be binding your company to those terms without someone that can actually offer that approval. That you are always considering privacy as you are entering in data. So there might be departments that you just completely exclude the use of generative AI, like your HR department, where there might be a lot of sensitive data. So you might just take a hardline stance to say the HR team cannot use it straight. You might be more flexible. But in any case, make sure that you address some of the human resources challenges as generative AI or any of the new AI tools and technologies, can collect significant amounts of data. Human review, another key point. I've heard some folks say, with generative AI, we're all going to become editors. I think that's something really important to think about, and make sure that you always have a human that is doing some level of review of any content that is spit out from some of these generative AI systems. Ensure that you have a data analysis broadly. And so in addition to some of the personal data that we discussed, you really want to assess what are the company confidential pieces of data as well. So there's a lot more to say on this, but overall, your policy should also talk about the approved use cases. So let people know what they can do and also what might be prohibited. And make sure that your policy has an enforcement provision that ensures that people will indeed take it seriously. Because with all of the incredible power and opportunity for the uses of AI today, there's also incredible risk that we need to take into consideration, especially as it relates to data privacy. So that's it for our discussion today. Thank you all so much for joining. It looks like there are 10 statements in the chat here. I'm going to take a quick look to see if there's a quick question I can answer in the next minute we have. Communication is a teachable skill. I agree with you, Barry. I completely agree. And thank you, Eileen, for your kind words, and Crystal as well. But lovely to be with you all today. Enjoy the rest of the Security Conference. This is such an important initiative. And again, reach out to me on LinkedIn if I could ever be of help or service. Or you can certainly add me or reach out to someone from my company at reliance.ai. Thank you all. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.